Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofermento. And if you've ever wondered what it takes to completely not only radicalize and innovate inside of an industry, but to build a loyal fan base of true fans, not just customers that like your product, but customers that love all the innovative things that you do, then we are all in for a real treat today with an incredible founder and fellow entrepreneur. Let me introduce you to him. His name is Tim Seward. Tim is the founder and creative heartbeat of ONYX Motors. He's a lifelong tinkerer and moped enthusiast, and he began experimenting with electric conversions all the way back in 2012, transforming gas mopeds into sleek, powerful prototypes. In 2017, Tim launched ONYX through a breakout Indiegogo campaign, introducing the RCR and the CTY, the city bikes, that redefined the category with their raw performance and timeless design. And I really love how clear his vision is, which is to create machines that are not just modes of transport, but vehicles of self-expression and rebellion. And trust me, doing all the research that I've done ahead of today's session and conversation, people who have ridden ONYX Motors vehicles and who have experienced the thrill of it, where we're talking 0 to 30 in less than 2 seconds, they are doing some incredible things. So I'm excited about this one. I'm not going to say anything else. Let's dive straight into my interview with Tim Seward. All right, Tim, I am so very excited to have you here on the show with us today. First things first, welcome.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Likewise, super excited to hear your story because there are so many ingredients into your success that I want to dive into. But first, you've got to take us beyond the bio. Who's Tim? How did you start doing all these cool things?
Well, I basically have been into, classic cars and motorcycles and mopeds since I was a kid. I started customizing, gas-powered mopeds and cars before I even had driver's license. Right, I was just running around my neighborhood before it got fully built out. It was a little bit more in the rural side, but then as I got older, got into cars and mostly classic Volkswagens. But then because of that passion, I was also into building and creating things. And so I'm an artist. So I would paint and just I was super creative as a kid. And I got into skateboarding and doing downhill skating, and eventually landed a job as the lead creative at a skateboard company. I was there for about 10 years. And I started to design the products there, and that's when I kind of really found my passion was to build products for the company, not just doing graphic design and videos and things like that. So I was doing videos and graphics before, but then really fell in love with actually developing the products. So I actually went back to school for industrial design, and so I was in my mid to late 20s for that era. And I learned consumer electronic design, so I got into designing a bunch of consumer electronics for big brands like Sonos and Intel and Nike, and I worked on the fuel band, and worked on refrigerators for Samsung, and just a bunch of different electronics that would be in household or wherever. But my main form of transportation was a gas-powered moped, but as a designer, that is really not it's not. People think it looks cool, but there's a lot of kind of negatives to gas-powered vehicles of that size. Right, they're really loud, they break down a lot, and they're kind of greasy. You get your hands dirty trying to fix them all the time. So it wasn't like the best look as a designer. So I ended up coming up with some ideas about how to make those electric with all the knowledge that I had in the industry from consumer electronics. And that's, we're talking, a decade down the line. And then I started to develop what we have today, which was the RCR for ONYX. Yeah.
Tim, it's so many cool aspects. I really appreciate hearing that backstory from you personally, because I'm going to call this out. Is the word tinkerer pops up in your bio in so many places, and I really love how much you've embraced that side of your personality. This isn't even you talking about business. This is just innately the things that you personally enjoy. And when I think back to that moment in 2017 when you said, you know what, I am going to launch ONYX, and I'm going to do it on Indiegogo, and I'm going to turn this into a brand that people absolutely love. There's a lot of things that happen in between all of those steps, Tim. And a large part of it is a lot of people will convince themselves of the reasons why it's not possible. And I've seen videos of you rolling through the ONYX manufacturing line and seeing these incredible products that your company puts out into the world that fans love. And I think about that's a big operation. There were so many little steps that got you there. What was your mindset like starting it? What was that catalyst where you said, no, I don't want to dream about this. I'm going to be the one that actually brings this into the world?
Well, I mean, it goes back to my skateboard manufacturing days. So when a lot of times people who are in the skateboard industry or know about it, it seems pretty small, right? And it is. Skateboard industry, like, on a business to business scale, each business is actually pretty small. So you'll see a lot of skateboard businesses will have multiple businesses under one house, because you can't just really be one brand. But we were one brand. So while we were global, we were fairly small in retrospect to other skateboard brands, which would have, maybe 5 or 10 different brands underneath like a parent brand. We weren't that big, but we were definitely, we had a strong global community, and manufacturing was, we would get parts done overseas, but we would do assembly in-house in our warehouse in San Francisco. And so for those 10 years, I learned how a small business was operated. And I took a lot of those best practices to, how I was going to launch ONYX. And so I actually ended up launching ONYX out of the same warehouse that the skate company was in. The skateboard company didn't actually kind of progress into the electric transportation movement, so it was effectively dying, just like all skateboard brands were, and only really the big ones have stuck around. But if we didn't have plans to move into electric skateboards, and by the time we were thinking about it, I could already tell that trend was dying. But bikes and bicycles and two-wheeled vehicles, in my opinion, have been around for 100 years, and people are always excited about bikes and bicycles, and I don't see that ever really being a dying thing, right? So the electrification of a bicycle just seems more logical. And at the time, electrifying a bike wasn't very popular when I was thinking about it. And for me, for it to actually make sense, it needed to be as powerful or more powerful than the equivalent form factor, right? Which would be like a moped of the same size. And if it didn't meet, modifying that, like gas powered equivalent, then it was kind of a dead project, and it was dead in the water. But when I actually built it, it far exceeded my expectations, and it was more powerful than gas. It was faster, it was more efficient, it was way more reliable. So for me, I was like, I discovered a product just by kind of playing around with ideas, and I was super excited about it. I loved riding it, and it became sort of my main mode of transportation. And the convincing factor for me was that I was riding around the city, San Francisco, all the time, and I literally could not get to work without being stopped by several people at stop signs, people yelling out of their car, people crossing the street saying, "Where do I buy that? How do I get it?" And I would always say, "It's not for sale," right? Like, it's something I built for myself. And then one day, some sort of investor or something like that was crossing the street, and he was like, "Are you kidding me? This isn't for sale. Are you joking? Like this, like, let's talk." And I ended up talking to him, but it wasn't really, it didn't really seem like a fit. So I just said, I might as well do this myself, because at the time, I was working for a design agency that launched a lot of Indiegogo campaigns and Kickstarter campaigns, and I was literally the guy building those campaigns. And those campaigns were generating millions of dollars for people. And I looked at it, I was like, I'm literally the guy, I'm not the guy behind the camera saying, hey, buy my stuff. I was literally the guy making all of the content, making all the renders, building out the campaign, coding the campaign, talking to the Indiegogo, the people who work at Indiegogo that would help be your campaign manager. So I was like, what? There's no reason why I couldn't do this myself. so that's where it just all started to percolate, and I just called up Indiegogo and told them that I've built all these campaigns. Like, you guys need to talk to me, because what they will do, Indiegogo and Kickstarter, they will kind of shun you and say, hey, like, talk to this person or talk to this, AI robot. Even back then, there was kind of just like automated responses. And I was like, no, I need to like have a meeting with you guys in person. And honestly, if I didn't get that meeting with someone in person to be my quote unquote campaign manager guide, I think it would have failed, because like having that connection with someone who actually works on the platform was very important. But I don't think that's easy for everyone to do. You have to have a good idea. They have to be convinced that it's something that they want to put one of their team members on. So if you do have a good idea, it's worth a shot, in my opinion.
Yeah, not only that, Tim, you say that it's not the easiest thing in the world, and it certainly isn't. You've accomplished huge things with what you've done with ONYX, and I'm excited to talk about the fan base that you've developed along the way, from celebrities to everyday people. There's so many people who love the product that you've built, but it's cool hearing, at the very top of that overview is we heard Tim, the product designer, the tinkerer. Now you're talking about the human element behind that Indiegogo launch, but also what I'm hearing, and especially what I see, the more that I research ONYX ahead of today's episode together, is really, Tim, you are so good and so tuned in to understanding the emotion that goes into products, is that you're not just a product designer. I love this verbiage that I saw about how you blend cyberpunk grit with California swagger. And to me, it's that where someone who lived in Southern California for as long as I did, I'm just like, yeah, the second you see that product, you associate with it. I'm like, it's way cooler than, LA is the playground for Bird, for Lime, for all these different companies that are testing things out. There's something emotional that you also found there. Talk to us about that angle of what's made ONYX successful.
Yeah, so I mean, it's kind of been coined as like Cali grit, right? It goes back to skate culture. There's even, if you look up like true moped culture. So when I say moped, a lot of people probably think of like a Vespa, but that isn't actually a real moped. That is, by definition, that's a seated scooter. So I just want to make that clear. When I say moped, I actually mean a real moped, which is a bike frame essentially that has a motor on it, like a gas-powered motor, and pedals. And then they started to kind of look more like little mini motorcycles. They'd have top tanks, or they'd be step-through bikes, but they were still by nature a single kind of bicycle frame with a motor and pedals. So just to be clear, so when I say moped and moped culture, I'm saying from that culture, not from Vespa culture, but from moped culture. And moped culture is kind of funny. I think it's more of like an inside joke, but people kind of take it seriously. But you dress a little bit more like a biker, like someone who would ride, a bobber type bicycle motorcycle, or like a custom chopper kind of style bike from the 70s. That look where you're wearing like a jean jacket and a patch, or kind of boots and like leather boots and things like that. That look is really big in moped culture, and they started to create like moped gangs, and there actually is this website called Moped Army. And if you look at it, there's a big global culture to that. And I saw this kind of parallel to skate culture with that. And coming from skate culture and building communities out of skate culture, I was like, this shouldn't be too hard to turn what I'm doing in the skate industry into like two-wheeled vehicles. and I saw like a couple other brands starting to also get a similar idea. So yeah, it definitely was the right path to go after a culture that people come together as a community, and they like help each other out, and it becomes less of a like top down kind of idea where ONYX is, telling basically the way I would think of it is like there's a lot of brands out there that people just look at the brand as being kind of the halo thing, but the way I look at it is the community is more of the halo aspect of our brand. So when you buy an ONYX, you're actually joining more of a community of people, and you're becoming friends with people all across the nation. We're not global quite yet. We're starting to expand, but at the moment, we're everywhere now. We're in Puerto Rico, Alaska, Hawaii, and every state in the United States, and everybody is talking to each other. Everyone's communicating, and that's really the awesome thing about this product. Is it's not just the product, but it's the community and how people customize and do all the mods and everything. So I think that's one of the awesome things about it.
Yeah, I want to go deeper there with you, because I feel like the classic business school example that people give in that domain is Jeep. And everybody knows the Jeep wave is that if I have a Jeep and you have a Jeep and we leave I still don't understand where they leave the rubber duckies, but I know that that's a thing for Jeep owners. And so they have created that culture. And Tim, it's such a fascinating phenomenon in the business world that business scholars will always ask that question. Is this something that is driven by the brand? There are creatives that have helped to facilitate this happening, and people try to recreate that. Or is it something that you would argue is just a natural, organic part of it? Because Tim, I have searched your name on YouTube, and I've seen fans excitedly running up to you at electric conventions, and it's people recognize you as the founder of the brand. But you're right, I found so many videos of ONYX riders just being like, "Hey, let's go on a ride together." So, what's your take on that? I guess it's part philosophical as well.
Right. Yeah. So, I would say I mean, there's definitely a lot of brands that are behind, like, behind the scenes, right? And the people behind those brands don't really come out and really be a part of the community, right? I think that's one of the key things that you have to do if you want to have a strong community. You actually have to be the person holding the torch and being the one that helps, strike get the community moving forward. And some of the things that I did was, created a forum of, on Facebook, because that's kind of the main place for people to have group chats now. It's not like the 90s where you were on, forums back and had bulletin board systems. That isn't really a thing anymore, but Facebook has a good, groups, and you create some groups and people start to join and they start talking. And then you identify the people that are pretty active, and you start talking to them, get them involved in things like video shoots or just things that you're doing as a brand, so that they become really excited about the brand. So one of the big things that I did was identify about 10 key players right as the company was still delivering the first bikes. So before people even had bikes, I invited 10 people and their significant other, whoever they wanted to bring, to a rented mansion in Joshua Tree, and had all these people meet each other for the first time. They've never met each other, right? And so and then also delivered bikes to some of those customers who hadn't had their bike yet. So it was really cool. Like, you show up and not expecting a bike there, where we said, "Oh yeah, we'll have a bike for you to borrow, right? But your bike is going to be shipped to you." Just kind of playing that game. And then when they showed up, we're like, "Here's your bike." Obviously we figured out a way to bring it back for them if they didn't have a way to bring it back. But the point is that we brought 10 people together and their friends to all meet each other. And then what happens naturally from that point, those people all exchange phone numbers, they all exchange contact information, and they all start hanging out. And that's exactly what happened. And then it just starts to get bigger and bigger and bigger. That is the catalyst, in my opinion, to get a group of people to start, communicating and actually hanging out with each other, and get offline and actually meet people in person. So, the more you do that, the more and quicker and faster it will grow. Of course, it can be expensive, like renting mansions. So you gotta do something a little bit more affordable, like just have events and ride outs and get people to meet up with each other. That was some of the other things I was doing. So I was having test rides, and I was having group rides, and getting those in different locations and getting people to come out. So you can't just do it all in one spot. You gotta go to other locations, so that you're making sure that you're grabbing people that otherwise wouldn't be able to make it to that event that you had somewhere else, right? So it's kind of about disseminating the group and making sure that it grows that way. But yeah, so I think those are kind of the main things. Generally, the product, if it's something that people want to customize and personalize and share with other people, that will also start to build a community as well, because a lot of creative people like to share their ideas and learn from other people, and so that was also a big thing, is making sure that the product was easily customizable, in a sense open source, so that it's not being locked down by a lot of consumer electronics are locked down, right? Like you don't have the right to repair, you don't have really the right to customize it in the way that you see fit, and unfortunately those products end up getting thrown away, whereas our product is meant to be customized and built to your preference, or just you can keep it stock and ride it as is, but at the end of the day, when you're done with it, or you want to get a new ONYX or something else that we might be offering, you could sell it to someone else, and that other person is going to love it to death, and it will just keep being passed down like a piece of furniture in your home. You're not going to throw it away. If it's a nice piece of furniture, you're going to end up selling to someone else who wants it, right? And you don't really see that with consumer electronics today. And I think that is also another big reason why ONYX is so popular and has such a big community, because our products they're meant to last. They're not meant to be throwaway products.
Yeah, that's so well said. I think about how many, I'm a big Apple fanboy. I'm in the Apple ecosystem, and you're right. My iPad gets to a certain age, nobody on planet Earth will want to use that iPad. It is not a good iPad, objectively, at this point in time. It can't even take on software updates. So yeah, that is a lost art. Whereas we think about when you and I were kids, which, by the way, Tim, shout out to you that you're talking about forums here at the beginning of 2026. It makes me as a millennial so happy to hear that we all still have those memories of what the early internet days were like. So I love that. But yeah, it's really cool hearing about that lost art that you have embraced, and obviously that trickle effect. We hear, I forget who the best-selling author was that talked about, all you really need is 100 true fans. If any business can achieve 100 true fans, the network effect from there is incredible. So I love how much emphasis you put on that. You said, hey, 10 people we found at first, and we're going to make those 10 people really happy. I've got to put you on the spot here, Tim, because it's such a joy having you on the air, and you're such a wealth of experience and knowledge in your entrepreneurial journey. A lot of entrepreneurs, when they hear stories like you, they always wonder, what was that lucky break? And I put that in air quotes because I don't like that term lucky, because it's just like, you want to see how lucky I got as I worked 1 million hours a week. So for people who are looking for when those lucky breaks are, I call them inflection points instead, where I'm just like, yeah, you kept hustling and something happened along the way that went really well. When you think back to that, what did those inflection points look like in your growth journey?
I mean, for me, it was my networking. I think that, to be honest, if I didn't have some of the connections that I had for decades, I honestly wouldn't have. I probably still would have been able to figure it out, but it would have been even more difficult struggle, and probably made it almost impossible to achieve the success that I had. But in general, it's not like it was a very extravagant network or anything like that, right? It was just that for starters, when you work with someone, even a decade earlier, you don't want to burn bridges with them, right? Like if they helped you learn some things, and maybe you don't agree with them after years of working with them, you still need to have good rapport with them and exit like gracefully, because you don't know, a decade down the line they could be calling you up asking for your help. And that's exactly what happened to me. So after I'd worked for the skateboard company, they actually called me, another decade later to help them shut down the company, which was crazy. They're like, "Hey, Tim, you're in the area. The company's going through some financial trouble. We have a bunch of inventory. We know that you know the brand and love the brand still. But would you be interested in helping us, sell through the product and shut down the company?" And then the other part of it was they kind of knew that I was working on this electric bike, electric moped, ONYX, and they said, "Well, in return, we'll let you use the warehouse to build out your company and basically take over the warehouse." And I was like, "Whoa, well, that's amazing," right? So had I not kept that relationship, just keeping tabs on them and just saying hi and always being friendly, I think that opportunity would have never been there, right? And so I think that is really, really important to make sure that you keep people under your wing, and just even if you're not friends with them for a long time, they could come back, and that's happened many times actually in my experience, right? So I'll give you one more example, and this has nothing to do with this company, but it did actually help kind of build to where I went, right? So I was contractor for design companies, and one of the companies I worked for was some web design company, and I was designing stuff for what is it called? It was Mini Cooper. I was doing something on their website, and they loved it, right? And that company thought it was awesome. I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years later, the person that was the head of that project was like, "Hey, I work at LG Electronics. We have this really cool Skunkworks, beautiful office in San Francisco, and we'd love for you to be the industrial designer for all of our new up-and-coming smartwatches and cell phones for LG Electronics." And I went and interviewed with them, pretty much got hired on the spot, immediately doubled my salary, and was actually able to be a lot closer to work than where I was. I was commuting an hour. It turned into maybe a 5-minute moped ride, so I was super excited about that. And that whole job just started to elevate my standing in design. And then 5 years later, I got the call about being able to have the opportunity to take over the warehouse at ONYX. So there's a whole bunch of stuff in that whole story, but generally, making sure that you exit gracefully is always important.
Yeah, I really appreciate those real life stories, because Tim, that's the exact stuff. I knew you'd be a great illustration of that point in real life, of the fact that, were you lucky that company called you 10 years later? Like, how many of us think, somebody from 10 years later? Yeah, some people might call that luck, but Tim, it's not lucky. It's not by chance that you were maintaining that relationship, that you were checking in, that you were being you in all the best ways. So huge kudos to you in that regard. And I'm going to put you on the spot one last time, 'cause it's the one question I ask at the end of every episode, and that is, what's your best piece of advice for listeners? You've already dropped so many knowledge bombs on us today and so many insights, and remember, we're being listened to by both entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs. So as a fellow entrepreneur, what's that one piece of advice you want to leave them with today?
I actually was recently asked this question. Someone was like, "I want to know how you did it. You seem to be well taken care of," or something like that. That was kind of it was like, I want to be able to get to that point in my life. And that was the question that someone asked me. And, I kind of, at the moment I was like, didn't really have a quick answer, but at the same time, it's still the same answer that came to the first thing that came to mind. And that was, I just followed what I really love to do. Like, there's always been that saying of, if you're having fun working, then it's not really work, right? So that's what I was always after. I was always after trying to do what I'm super passionate about. So like if I was really, I'm passionate about cars, I'm passionate about old Volkswagens, but I see that more as a hobby, and I never really saw that as something that I could do professionally. There are people that are really into building out cool Volkswagens and, tinkering with that, but I just didn't see that as my passion. I saw it as more of like something I kind of like doing, like painting or something, like just something I like to do for fun, but it's not my main passion. And so I figured out what I really like to do, and I just kept going after it. And for me, that was, design and creating things and making people putting a smile on people's faces, right? So like building a community around what I've created. And that could be anything really, right? But that's the core of it, right? Is I went after what I am super passionate about, and I think that that would be my best advice to anybody: is you need to be passionate about it. Because if it's just about like a quick money grab or something that isn't really what you're passionate about, because you could be passionate about money, but like if you really think about it, like I don't think that's most people's passion. I think that's like a drive for something that you want in life, but I would say look at what you're passionate about and what you enjoy doing. And the idea is, if you're having fun, then it's not really work. Like that's kind of the main idea. So I would look for things like that to be successful.
Yeah, so well said. I'm so appreciative of you sharing all these stories and insights and wisdom with us here in today's episode. I'm also very excited for listeners to go check out all the cool things you guys are rolling out at ONYX Motors. I've had such a blast. Not only, your website is amazing. I have to say that publicly, but also the stuff that you guys haven't created, the fan-driven content that I've come across on YouTube, everything that you guys have out in the world, it's so cool to see. So for listeners who want to experience the thrill of ONYX themselves, or they want to see your products in action, drop some links on us. I know you've got nationwide events. Tim, tease where listeners should go from here.
Yeah, so onyxmotors.com is our main website, so you can check out the products there. Then if you go to ONYX Motors on Instagram, or ONYX Motorbikes on Instagram, you'll find all the up-to-date stuff that we're doing in the moment. And then on Facebook, we're ONYX Motors /ONYX Motorbikes. You can find us under both names, and you'll be able to join the groups and check out what's going on. I think joining the groups is honestly where you can see all the activity daily and what everybody's doing with their bikes, and you can really dive in deep there. But if you're just looking for like a surface level approach, you can check out our website. And then if you come to our store at 2828 Newell Street, it's in Suite 3 right next to the La Colombe Cafe. We're on the river path on the LA River. You can do a test ride on one of our bikes, and we can take you out on like a nice 20 to 30 minute ride up into Griffith Park, and it's a beautiful ride and it's free. It's like a lot of people say that we should charge for it because it's basically a tour of LA for free, and you get to do it on a cool electric vehicle. So and you get a free coffee at the end of it from La Colombe. So that's a pretty awesome deal.
Holy cow, Tim, that is the best deal in all of Los Angeles. So listeners, if any of you are Angelinos, definitely take Tim up on that. What more of an epic ride? You can have your own little Grease moment going up the LA River.
Yeah.
So
right, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I love that. Listeners, you already know the drill. We're dropping all those links down below in the show notes, no matter where it is that you're tuning into today's episode. So definitely check out those show notes. Get involved. That's what makes ONYX as cool as it is. And Tim, you've been such a wealth of knowledge. So on behalf of myself and all the listeners worldwide, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you.